your everything, it ain't no holding back. Time to be the one, best squad, that's a fact. Nobody can stop me when I get in my zone. Take it higher, go from unknown to world known. On another level, competition is in trouble. Putting numbers on the board and it's about to double. We can never fold, we can never break. To be the greatest, we will do whatever it takes.
Hold our ground where we at. Never fall back. No lies, no facts. We will stay right where we at. We never fall back.
2 เกมนี้
We never fall back. And you can find me where I'm at. We never fall back. We never fall back. And you can find me where I'm at. We never fall back.
Legendary, feeling like it's my moment. No slowing down now, we can move forward. We got the passion and drive, we stay working. An undeniable team, we on the circle. Bring the fire like a dragon, hunger and the passion. Making history, our energy is everlasting. We're staying on top, team so supreme. Making big moves the world has never seen.
We never fall back. Hold our ground where we at. We never fall back. Hold our ground where we at. Never fall back. We never fall back. Hold our ground where we at. Yeah. No lies, all facts. You can find me right where I'm at. We never fall back. We never fall back. Yeah. We never fall back. And you can find me where I'm at. We never fall back. Hold our ground where we at. Yeah. No lies, all facts. You can find me right where I'm at. We never fall back. We never fall back. Yeah. We never fall back. And you can find me where I'm at. We never fall back. We never fall back. And you can find me where I'm at. We never fall back.
Man, if this doesn't get you guys hyped for what's going to be coming up in these next 2 weeks, I don't know what will. Fantastic song, as well as some fantastic teams going to be participating here in these 2 weeks. But guys, let's take a look at our schedule, right? Let's get an idea of what's going to be happening today, what maps we'll be going to, and of course, in what order. And man, I'm happy to not see us ending up on Sanhok.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it before anyone else does.
Just had to get rid of it right away. I'm sad we're not seeing Vikendi at all. But hey, the after party, well, maybe
You'll get a little bit.
We'll get a little snippet of it, but you know it's going to be interesting. 3 Erangels are going to be also having your 2 Miramars, 1 Sanhok. Unfortunately for Nigma Galaxy and TJB, not as much shield off they can do, but they can try and get a few points here.
I like that Erangel's the full focus.
All right, we're going to head over to James Yang, the director of PUBG Mobile Esports, here on the stage.
I would like to say personally how incredible it is to talk to you all in person. It's too far long, as we all know. I'm here today to share the unknown. I'm here today to share the unknown. I'm here today to share the unknown. I'm here today to share the all know, I'm here today to share the
Sí, ven aquí. Nos van a querer matar, van a revolear el...
all know.
Yang telah memberikan kesempatan untuk Indonesia menjadi tuan rumah dan spesial untuk Mr. Agung Caniago kita mention untuk
all know, I'm here today to share the
And I think if you're able to kind of control the circles, even flex out and push people out of circles as well and hold them as a barrier, flex out and push people out of circles as well and hold them as a barrier.
Place at PMGC, really surprises they were so consistent. They've been really consistent this year, I think, having the most chicken dinners in a PMPL across the world. This team is amazing, and they should be looked at as one of the favorites.
Yeah, and in a very similar grain to Stalwart, they are a team that has stuck together for, I think, almost 700 days now. The roster has stuck together, never changed, which is very impressive to see. And also, they're playing locally, right? They are a local team. They won PMP Arabia in the spring season. A little bit too close on the full season, unfortunately. But having fans present for this offline event, it doesn't happen too often for PUBG Mobile. We'll see if the offline buff is going to really work out for them.
The region has strong teams for sure. Nigma Galaxy has to be one of them. I think one thing that goes against them a little bit is that we only have one Sanhok per day. They are decent there. They're playing the averages, is fair to say, when it comes to a game, a battleground like Sanhok. But beyond that as well, we've seen good compound control from them when we've been kind of covering them. They've continued that throughout the months. So impressive stuff from them to continue on into this tournament.
So I want to bring up a question to you guys. I know you have more teams you want to talk about, but I feel like a general consensus I've seen from a lot of these teams going into this event was they did either really, really bad in the league stage, and then they did well in the finals. They did well in the league stage, and they did well in the finals. They carried it over. But a lot of the teams struggled when it came to those regional playoffs, right? Those regional championships. A lot of teams just weren't really able to live up to what they did in their own region. And when you're playing at an international event at a global scale like this, I'm kind of worried for those teams.
Yeah, I think that's the lack of international experience that a lot of these teams have, unfortunately, heading into this. So this first day is going to be rough for some of these squads, right? They're going to have to deal with it the hard way. It's going to be like trial and error for a lot of these guys, seeing how the drop goes, how the rotation goes, and I think that after this first day, after the first game of each map, things will start to settle in a little bit more, but it is a lot of unknown heading into now.
It's definitely a feel-out day, right?
Yeah.
That's fair to say. We have seen these guys have a few test games here and there to try and feel out the drops, as you're saying. But even as we've studied these teams' drops, where they're going, sometimes in their own regions, they've had their preferred drop, but then had to move away. Here, we're going to see some of that again. We're going to see teams like, I mean, REGAN, I can't even do
REGAN.S
it.
Gaming.
I can't hear myself. Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, we can.
Apparently, yeah. I mean, for example, their Yasnaya split that they were doing with 2 and south of Kameshki, as well as Yasnaya. You have to tighten that up in this kind of lobby here because there's more threats actually looming on the edges of your drop. So even from the word go in these games, you got to be very, very careful about how you're feeling at the other teams.
I mean, for teams who haven't played on a national level, like you think of VIVO Key, and I know we talked about this actually quite a bit before the event, they've not really played a LAN. They've not really played a global event. I mean, you're kind of hitting
all in one.
Big things all in one. Like, realistically, what can you expect from a team like this? I mean, obviously, Brazil has high hopes for them.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's all about the preparation going into the event, you know, your scrims. And I also know that a lot of teams have picked up a coach pretty much last minute, but that can have a pretty drastic impact on your team and how you approach and visualize the game, right? I think that can have a pretty big impact. Like talking about VIVO Keyed, they qualified above teams like Influence Rage, Alpha 7, which is even Loops, which is very, very impressive. So I've had the chance to cast them a little bit over in the Western tournaments and like Americas. I think they have the chops to do well on an international event. Unfortunately, we'll have to see how it's going to go because we've never seen it before, but I think there's a chance that VIVO Keyed could be like a dark horse almost heading into this.
Okay. Actually, Claris, do you have a dark horse that you're looking at?
I mean, it's kind of up and down. I guess I would have to pick a team like Morph. They come from a great region. I did expect other teams to qualify from that region, like RRQ, for example. But they showed that they're able to hang with the top teams there. So maybe they can make something happen in this lobby, even though I'm favoring the big dogs overall.
Okay, yeah. And considering, again, we have 18 matches, right? And you're talking about like getting accustomed to the lobbies. You don't have time. And we have actually seen, like you mentioned before, a lot of coaches coming in, a lot of really well-known coaches, some maybe on Nova X Quest F, the ones who have been able to take home PUBG. Like, how much can a coach realistically offer you when you only had, I guess, maybe a little bit of lead up into the event, but you only have 3 days of play? It's really hard to make drastic changes to how the lobbies play out. I
mean, in terms of gameplay, of course, you've got a lot of research and work that's been done in the background. I think it's mostly getting the players and the teams in the mentality, because a lot of the coaches that have been picked up by these teams have that LAN experience. They know how it works out. They know how the teams adapt to it. And I think just telling them how it's going to happen and how it's going to go down is really good for the mental state. Like, they seem more prepared heading into this.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be getting into our first match shortly here, but I want to give a shout out here to Sony with the Play to Win with Xperia 1 IV, created in collaboration with professional esports players, so you know it's going to be good. The Sony's Xperia is the official smartphone provider and partner here of PUBG Mobile. But as you saw before on the schedule, we do have Erangel coming up here in just a few moments to kick things off this event. High fives going out, at least air high fives as well here. But it's time to bring in our commentators, maybe have a little chat with them before the match kicks off here. We got John, Allen, and Blank joining me here on the desk. Gentlemen, this is going to be crazy. It's going to be exciting. Maybe you have some teams you want to point out. I'll leave the floor open to you.
Thank you very much, Jason. Yeah, we're going to be getting into this first game. Blank, there's a lot of teams here with a lot on the line.
There is, yeah, and Jason was asking, you know, is there any other teams that maybe we're looking at? I think there's one team that maybe the guys on the desk haven't mentioned yet that I'd love to talk about, and that is actually Vampire Esports. I do think that this team currently looks extremely good as a team overall. You know, they've been through a lot of different iterations of Victim Sovers at the start of the year into Victim 365, then Aton Esports in their qualifier for the Spring 22 finals, and now finally coming through you know, now as Vampire Esports. So, oh no, they were Power Triple 8 right at the beginning. Sorry, that's Morph GGG I'm talking about. But they've gone through a lot of iterations. They have now Corpai on the team, who used to be on Power Triple 8 when they had some of their better games. He's coaching, so they're talking about coaching on the desk as well. This could be a great position for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be looking pretty strong for them right now. Everyone loading up into the game. I think we got the plane path of the first game maybe loading on up here. Blank as well. You can see the players in the lobby. Look at that. They're running around. They're trying to get everything sorted. Those furtive glances over the shoulder there. Something going on.
Yeah, no, just trying to get people into the match, and already we are having things kicked off here in the PMWI, this regional clash between so many different players from so many different countries here. It's great to see the representation. There's no problems either because everyone's playing here at LAN.
Game number 1 loading on up. Erangel as we kick things off here. Players loading on, the plane path moving over as it fades into the map. Loading on up. Match number 1. It all starts now. The helicopters flank the plane.
Helicopters coming out of this one next to the plane here. We are having our plane path already. We did get a little quick sneak peek at this plane path at the beginning of the game, heading just under Novo up towards Gatka. Now this is a fantastic little drop spot already for Stalwart. I'd imagine they're going to be dropping out the plane here, but it's Aton jumping out almost immediately, heading up possibly towards Mill to Power. That's a drop spot that they've been loving recently. Rozok, on the other hand, quite inaccessible, and that was going to be quite the big hot drop for a lot of teams like Donuts heading up there, a few other teams on that location with Damwon and Kia just underneath them in School and Apps, but you can see that Stalwart already immediately in Novorobnoye. Sometimes they will head towards North Sosnovka, but this is their preferred drop, and this is great for an 18-man lobby, John.
Yeah, and then Wildcats as well over on that military base, joining them on that South Island. Those northern crossings may be a little bit more populated, do you think, after those bridges with this plane path as south as it is. Some teams will try and migrate north, sure, but that traffic jam will certainly have an impact.
Yeah, you're just trying to cover as much of the map as possible. You know, James, Max, Jason on the desk, all talking about this beforehand, saying that, you know, there is going to be a lot of space on the map that you're going to have to cover. Not so many scouting positions now can be taken for these teams, just in the early game at least, just in case you get caught off guard by a team that's in the vicinity that you maybe wouldn't think would be there before. Though we do have Vampire Esports, they are doing their usual drop down towards Ferry Pier, Quarry and Primors, really taking things wide at the beginning of this game.
Yeah, a little bit of a late dropout, sure, but it was fairly close by to the plane path, right? So they will have plenty of time to be able to navigate and get things sorted for themselves moving forwards on their northerly movements that will have to come through as the circle pops. It looks like Falcon already in competition with Morph. The top of the hill currently occupied by Morph.
Yeah, it's going to be quite difficult here for Morph to actually... well, it's very easy for Morph to pick up on this one because Falcon's drop is a little bit further up towards Yaz, honestly. So Morph drop out early, get the catch on Falcons. Already taken one player from alone down here. Does get res back up into the fight, though. So not quite elimination coming through just yet. But Donuts USG actually currently have 2 points already.
Yeah, they're starting to pop off. I mean, looks like they've managed to find themselves a little bit of a spot. Falcons, as we're talking about, rezzed up in a little bit of cover. Presence known, though, between those two teams on that split area. Never alone. Has his team. Yep. Seems to play to the name. But look at this. You've got Box Gaming with some trouble.
Yeah, Box dropping right on the coastal side, and it's VGS trying to pass by them in vehicles. Now, VGS have 2 spots. It's up towards Severny as their secondary, Lipovka as their primary. Not able to get to any of them. So this is so awkward, but this is now time for Box to try and show some dominance. They regrouped around Break and Soaz after their decent PMGC. I think it was World League. Now they really need to show their stuff here after losing a couple of players and reforming.
Nearly perfect nade there coming through from Break, but doesn't quite get the knock. They will have got that hit marker, that indication that there's a player close. They know there's a vehicle moved. Well, they still know that there's a player this close. Mini 14 with the 4X on the off angle for VGS. Should be pretty solid at holding down this ridgeline, but if 3 players from Box go down, it's going to be tough. Around the side, though, gives away the position, and it's an easy spray down for Box Gaming to pick up their first elimination of the game.
That's a really sick just run around there from the team. Very fantastic stuff overall. VGS just crumbling. Obviously not able to get either of their drum spots in this game. And they just fumble for it. And this is what the 18-team lobby does to you. You know, you try and head to a spot that you think may be free, but it's just not.
Still bleeding out VGS down to 2. They will be taken on out. Donuts They were contesting as well. Nigma Galaxy taking early losses. These are the 2 points that you were pointing out earlier.
Yep. Yeah, that is rough there. But USG, honestly, this is a team that really wanted to take Rozhok. You know, in all the practice games we see them play before this, they have always gone Rozhok here. Just looking at anything on my drops in terms of statistics, you know, 4 Rivals was the other team that was going to head over here. But in fact, you know, Nigma Galaxy tried to challenge out. Usually they're the Pachinki team, so maybe they dropped just slightly short. USG had to go a little bit further. And just on the way, they picked up a couple of points.
You love to see it.
Yeah.
Certainly if you're a USG fan. Falcon, 4 players in a vehicle. Not advisable. They're heading towards Yasnaya Polyana as well, which is currently occupied by Morph. On this northern rotation, they are behind the game. Morph on the western side of Yasnaya right now. They will be holding down a lot of those buildings, a lot of those compounds. Hopefully they're going to spot the Falcons' approach, right? It's a very open field. If you're looking that way, you will be seeing them. They're only in 1 vehicle as well, which means that if you're taking some pot shots, you might even be able to get a couple of eliminations there.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a real chance for it. Now, VGS, you know, broken and battered, heading up still past Damwon Kia, who've still gone for that Apps school split. It's a little tighter this time, though, and I respect that from Damwon Kia. James on the desk was talking about, you know, how really they wanted to keep things survival-based, get towards the end of the game. It's not about huge eliminations, just consistently putting up those placement points. Now, that's going to give you a good average point over in the PMWI, but 3 days, you do need to strike out a little bit. Donuts USG getting these initial 2 points and also claiming Rozhok straight away. This is fantastic for them. And Donuts USG, they've come out on top in Japan at the moment. Even in the PUBG Mobile Showdown between Korea and Japan, they were a full 10 points ahead of anyone else in that lobby right at the top. So really fantastic stuff from Donuts USG so far.
Hopefully spinning around, turning their opponents' heads whenever they can. Morph, I think they have spotted Falcons. Falcons, you can see, still with a little bit of damage on board. That might have been from earlier, probably still healing that one up. Never Alone was the player who was already knocked by the enemy team. I don't know if it was Morph, actually. I have to go back and watch that again. But Falcons did get knocked. Oh, it was Morph from up the hill. That was the first engagement that they had. So they did already do a little bit of damage. It looks like they will not leave each other alone for now. VGS down to 2 players. They've spotted back-to-back on the ridge line. It looks like, back-to-back just want to take up position.
Yeah.
And see whatever vantage points they can try and claim.
This is fairly interesting as well because REGAN.S trying to head in the direction of Morph. These are 2 teams that drop in Yasnaya. REGAN.S with a Yasnaya South Kameshki split, but Falcons trying to take up this position as well over in Yasnaya. So a lot of contention on this eastern side of the map. I know that, you know, 52 Esports, they've tried to take Stalba and then South Yasnaya as well before, but right now they're right on the western coast at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they've changed it up. I mean, to be fair, there have to be some changes, right? In this lobby, it's a new mode that these teams won't have played with 18 teams in it, right? Mm-hmm. It is seemingly a small difference, but it absolutely will have an impact, as the desk covered previously. So we'll have to see what impact that actually has, because right now, we haven't seen much more than 1 or 2 hot drops, right?
Well, what I will say, you know, is that people have been very stubborn on their drop spots. And even just from the small research that I was able to do, I say small, no, modest, small research they were able to do about their drop spots beforehand in this tournament, you know, a lot of these teams have gone for these drop spots regardless of how south that playing path was. So, you know, we could have this gentleman's agreement going on from a lot of these teams. It's like, these are our spots, we can't go away from them. So secondary spots just really aren't too available anymore. And for that reason, if you get a really, really bad playing path, you could be in for a very bad game.
The playing path on this one was very south, and the circle did shift up north. And I'm looking at the teams that have made that journey north early, and I'm looking at 4 Rivals, right? All the way up in Severny. Right at the top of this circle now, playing from their northern bastion. Stalwart Esports on the southeast of the circle, just about crossing in. One of the favorites of this tournament right now, Blank.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't have too many notes on this team just because they play things so clean, and there's only so many ways you can write clean to be honest with you. So I was very, very impressed with Stalwart. I think so is the desk. You know, they're set for a fantastic PMWI, but we could see some rising stars, some rising countries just come out of nowhere and blast them out of the water, but we'll have to wait and see here. But for Stalwart, so far, things have been very good. I really do like this Novo drop for them in the beginning here. The edge of the map with 18 teams, it's going to be rough. There's not a lot of positions to play in, and with the loot that you get on board from Novo, with the 6 to 7 medkits that we saw already on just one of their players, you know, they'll be able to outlast that Storm on the edge.
You'd hope so, with the caliber of teams that we're dealing with anyway. Although that works to their detriment as well, doesn't it? I mean, they have to face off against this super high caliber lobby. It's not going to be easy. Aton take up the gas station. That's out to the west of Yasnaya Polyana. And Morph looking their way.
Yeah, so Morph just on that western road, right, with Aton just underneath them. And for Morph, that being their original spot, they've actually moved west here towards that northern coast. So, you know, they're just looking out for any cheeky teams that try and hold on this north coast. And it's a great idea as well, because it's a very easy position to corner and cause mayhem from many teams, because you don't really want to cluster around this southern edge. There's so much space up towards Severny, especially with that southern playing path. This is a great position to, you know, take up and just chill out, take some time for yourself, especially if you dropped in South George. Like some of the teams, in fact, we've already seen TJB move up. Afterparty Esports might want to head up there, so will 52 just in the South George bridge right now. So Morph could get a lot of points just from this singular position.
I'm looking at USG as well, right? You talked about earlier in the game. It's great they've managed to get Rozhok, they've managed to lay claim to that area, but if they don't leave there early enough, it could prove to be their tomb, their mausoleum, right? If they aren't able to get across early enough, if it's a northern shift, they could really be scuppered.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can take every one of these teams and just imagine that they're elastic bands, and USG is that first elastic band, and you know when you create that elastic band ball, at some point it is going to break and explode, and poor USG is right in the middle. They are going to
just get bigger elastic bands.
Explode, and poor USG is right in the middle. They are going to
just get bigger elastic bands. I don't.
You could do. I'm working with very small elastic bands here.
They certainly have had that opportunity, probably more so than most of these other teams. Morph had to move a lot at the start. I mean, Nigma Galaxy might have had that opportunity, but unfortunately they lost 2 players early.
Ooh.
4 rivals jetting down from the north side.
You absolutely would as well. I mean, this is a great time for them. You know, you get such an awful playing path. You head up all the way to Severny, and the circle just continues to move north and north and north. And now at this point in time, they were being
half HP, and it's spotted. There is the off angle. Tingsker finds what TJB are looking for. 2 players from 4 rivals are down.
Really incredible stuff, and yeah, I'm loving to see the new Scar love coming through, the most recent buffs for the guns coming into the game. You know, Scar being almost as good as the M4 now, if not better, depending in the hands. So really, really nice to see a little bit more variation in terms of that weaponry. Already another little knock coming through for Team Seoul. But yeah, great stuff from TJB. Considering they were all the way over towards Hospital South George, that was one hell of a send that they made happen over towards this compound, which is now extremely central in this circle.
TJB firing for Nigma Galaxy, the first team to go down fully blank. They lost 2 players very early.
Yeah.
You kind of think, fair enough, go again.
It's a bit of a struggle, though, for Nigma Galaxy. It's not kind of the precedent you want to be setting as that team when everyone knows you as the survivalist. You are the Bear Grylls of the lobby, and it's just not working out for them here. Scry from Stalwart taking some shots over towards Wildcats. Already Ray going down. Defoe off in the distance, takes some pot shots back, but now it's the Wildcats having to regroup here and trying to make something work.
A moment, Wildcats heavily under fire for Stalwart on the south side of them, but there's a traffic jam to get further into the zone as the next circle pops heavily south as well. So it will be on their shoreline, but they have a lot of treacherous ground ahead of them.
Action eliminating Ray here.
Of course, if
Charles,
you guys want to earn points, you can complete daily mission. Once enough points are accumulated, you can tap on the rewards icon in the game to claim the corresponding reward. That's if you're watching enough of this PMWI.
You can participate in the event solo or team up with other players. That's absolutely fine. And you know what? Just like the players in the PMWI, teaming up could get you that reward just a little bit easier.
There's Vampire. You can see, you were talking about them earlier. They're swimming in the river right now. I always think that these river finishes in the middle section near that Roshok crossing is one of the most brutal places that these circles can finish.
I mean, all these teams on the northern side are going to be dragged across sandpaper, basically, trying to get into this circle. It's so unfortunate because you assume it's going north here. TJB got such a nice position, and it swings back down south. Now, I want to see USG, the Japanese team, translate this because they've been given such a good opportunity here for a chicken dinner right at the beginning of the day.
Aton looking to guard them out. Currently on the eastern side of the circle, will stop that rotation north, stop that progression west. Make things difficult. Down one, ahead. You can see they're taking a couple of knocks from back to back. I think this is the circle where most of this impact to the 18-team lobby will be felt, although we are down to 62 players.
17 teams still. I did not expect this at this point in the game. Already 17 minutes in. It's absolutely nutty here. 52 Esports do knock themselves, though. That is extremely unfortunate. They're coming from that western side. But Stalwart, we mentioned them. They were taking a fight versus the Wildcats, and this is where they need to play the edge game perfectly. They've been thrown a little bit of a lifeline here on the southern edge. See if they can make anything happen with it.
Stalwart taking shots really fast and strong rotation, I'd say, but Lightning does get caught there, unfortunately, for the spray down. And they are going to lose him at the wall up the top, back to back, have their Polo representative for the squad. As the nades start to ring out, they're not going full aggression just yet, Blank.
Now, if you want to get yourself the 2022 PMWI gun skin and outfit, you know, we have a sale period going on through from the 4th of August through to the 13th of August. We have 50% off PMWI packs, and you get a set straight away in that time frame and 5 extra chances to draw the PMWI treasure chest.
And if you miss out on that first sale period, there is a second one from the 14th of September all the way up till the 15th of the next month, where you get 16% off PMWI packs. You get 6 chances to draw PMWI treasure chests.
Looking straight back at the game here. Back-to-back have actually made it quite far from there. It was quite a difficult drop spot for them on that southern edge on the coast. Wildcats still in this one with 3 players. Surprisingly, you know, they took an absolute beating from Stalwart on that southeastern edge, but the circle is starting to close in right now. Directly on top of Rozok. Oh, USG, yes please.
They're very happy about that, you're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead it's going to be their pedestal. You're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead it's going to be their pedestal. You're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead it's going to be their pedestal. You're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead it's going to be their pedestal. You're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead it's going to be their pedestal.
Quiere darle contienda a esto, pero la puerta está impidiendo el paso de las granadas. Goblin que se mete ahí, Héctor que terminaba cayendo, Goblin que se va prendido fuego en manos de Top. Y ahora, ¿qué va a terminar pasando? Porque la gente de Stalwart ataca con todo, se viene agresivo, pero también empiezan a caer. Action que arranca con todo, se manda de cabeza, pisa el pedal a fondo, sin miedo, sin nada más que hacer. Se manda de cabeza, confirma las bajas y solamente queda Omega de Team Soul.
Así es, están complicados varios equipos, ya 38 jugadores para 14 equipos en pie. Significa que muchos de los equipos están bastante mermados, con menos integrantes que los perdieron en el camino. Los vampiros peleando contra los Wildcats, también tenemos a REGAN contra Back to Back. Lindas peleas y claro, todos los que están en el agua van a empezar a sufrir de a poquito.
You're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead it's going to be their pedestal. You're right. We talked about how it might be their
Morph y nada más, en una posición 14 que tampoco da punto de posicionamiento, así que solo 3 puntitos, no creo que estén satisfechos con esto.
Ay, For Rivals, que está con Pemburu nada más con vida, los chupasangres por ahí aprovechándose todo. Y Bruno, ¿qué dice? Permiso, perdón, puntito para Aton. 3 equipos todavía. Aton, que lo vemos ahí al Choco en pantalla. ¿Se mató Back to Back? ¿Qué pasó ahí? Se autodetonaron entre ellos, se fue la gente de TJB Esports de Europa, para los que estaban preguntando por ahí de dónde eran. Frank estaba matando a Killswitch, se están aprovechando de todo. Didi que se va a ir en manos de Tierra Texas, no te la puedo creer. Aton está haciendo una gran partida, no quiero mufarlo porque los que voté para las predicciones sí los mufé. Se acaba de ir Morph, ahí está, la está pasando mal. Regan, pero que también estaba con 4 eliminaciones. Y veremos si pueden salir a flote de este sector que...
You're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead it's going to be their pedestal.
¿Qué pueden hacer al respecto? Porque es una zona bastante complicada esta parte de Rosso, con la subida, con la bajada, con las pocas casas que hay dentro del círculo, porque queda un poco en las afueras de Rosso, bastante campo abierto. Va a estar difícil para muchos de los equipos, sobre todo porque quedan 10, obviamente los jugadores no son tantos, pero siguen siendo equipos los que quedan en pie. Pero bueno, ya las posiciones ahora empiezan a valer puntos y es importante cada posición sobrevivida. Los chicos de VIVO KD perdieron a Cielo, pero ya llevan 5 puntos de eliminaciones. Adrián también se nos va al piso y la granada de Stone puede ser letal. Va muy bien, tiene buen destino. No, cayó Diego y Magrelín se salvó de milagro, pero viene una segunda y parece que se nos van acá. Los disparos de alguien, no sé de quién. Terminaron con los chicos de OKD antes con la granada. Fue Fluke finalmente. Fabian que termina con los 4 Rivals. Ahora sigue sufriendo la gente de Virtual Gaming Squad, que se va eliminada. Aton también recibe noqueo. Los chicos de los vampiros son los que lo están sacando del camino, pero Bruno ofrece un poquito de resistencia. ¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó con Aton? Acá lo tenemos. Superfran y Bruno perdieron 2 jugadores.
Está complicada la situación para los atómicos, los están detonando, los están haciendo pelota, pero a ver, esta partida destacar a los vampiros es una locura, los vemos a cada rato en la killfeed, aparecen, están ahí con todo, tienen hambre los chicos, quieren hacer ahí un poquito más de estruendo, mientras Fran terminaba cayendo. Vamos a ver qué terminará pasando. Lo terminan derribando a Fran. Se va Trismi.
You're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead it's going to be their pedestal.
Está esperando el momento para atacar. Box Gaming, que tiene a un jugador por levantar, y Aton, que se nos termina despidiendo en la 7ª posición con 5 eliminaciones. Más allá de todo, el rendimiento es óptimo.
Así es, 100% óptimo. Y ya vamos entrando en el top 5 de la partida. Se nos va DWG. Y cuidado porque Stone, la gente de los vampiros, sigue noqueando. Esta vez los que sufrían eran los Donuts, los japoneses. Mientras que Box Gaming, uno de los primeros equipos en conseguir eliminaciones en la partida, todavía se mantienen con 3 jugadores en pie y uno noqueado que todavía pueden salvar. Pero el jugador de Soul no lo ve. Está tirado entre los arbustos y el muro, aguantando como puede alguna que otra posición extra. Pero va a estar bastante difícil. Omega puede ser una gran sorpresa para los chicos de Box Gaming. Si no lo encuentran rápido, se ponen a pelear y sale de abajo del suelo de los arbustos y se puede complicar las cosas. Los japoneses quieren vengar de los vampiros, pero no parece que esté saliendo del todo bien. Solamente queda Misil y 3 jugadores de los vampiros, mientras que Fluke... ¿Cuánto? Explícame esto, Killer. Explícame cómo llevan 18 kills en la primera partida de estos muchachos.
¡Qué chupasangre que son los tipos, los vampiros que están como locos! Y olvídate, acá Drácula está de fiesta con todo esto, porque vinieron a dar los 19 y siguen sumando y siguen dándole con todo. Se quieren llevar a las donas, se quieren comer todo. Box Gaming, que espera desde la parte baja. Pensé que el jugador de Team Soul iba a aguantar un poco más, estaba echando raíces, pero bueno, así lo terminaban dejando también. El misil, que queda acá metido en una situación clave, mientras Box Gaming observa a la distancia, pero la gente de Stalwart también aprovecha. Son 2 jugadores con Action y Pika. Están esperando el momento para atacar. Saben que si se desesperan van a terminar perdiendo la partida. La gente de Kiev, justamente de Stalwart, son los que tienen la ventaja en cuanto a zona se refiere. Los pude esa pequeña montaña, ese pequeño high ground, y la resto de Action revienta a Break. Y esto continúa todavía, se va a mandar. Tiene que salir de ese sector. Break no va a poder hacer demasiado. Trismi, que tiene que hacer todo lo posible para poder salvarse. Stonehead, que le pega con todo. Los vampiros que se mandan de cabeza. ¿Cuánto va a terminar esto? No te la puedo creer.
You're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead it's going to be their pedestal.
No te da tantos puntos de 20 como el pollito. Y cuidado porque el misil se va a terminar siendo eliminado antes. Los Donuts, los japoneses, caen en la 4ª posición. El jugador de Stalwart también termina cayendo en manos de Fluke, que lo habían salvado. 22 eliminaciones y se metieron directamente en el top 2 contra los chicos de Box Gaming, que les queda solo un jugador porque la zona de juego lo noqueaba y dejaba a Azu solo. Y fue un error enorme tratar de levantar a su compañero, me parece, porque eso lo deja en una muy mala posición. Y sí, no puede ser de otra forma. Va a conseguir la kill 20 y cuánto, porque había varios noqueados. Y de los noqueados, ¿cuántos noquearon ellos? Al menos 24, Killer. Pedazo de pollito, winner, chicken dinner para los vampiros.
Y sí, detalle.
Kalau dari STE, Kang Pokul, Vampir, Kang
You're right. We talked about how it might be. You're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead.
Mencukupi kalau mereka boleh revive semua player mereka.
You're right. We talked about how.
Uno de los noqueados de Box Gaming también había sido noqueado por los vampiros y ese punto se lo terminan quedando también. Pero la verdad que una locura, sin lugar a dudas, cómo arrancaron. Nervios cero, ¿no? El presencial que vos decís, a ver, vienen jugando online un montón de tiempo, que el presencial, que tal, que la primera partida, que arrancar, que un montón de cosas. No, a ellos nervios de acero, aprovecharon justamente el nerviosismo del resto de los equipos y arrasaron, porque sacando los primeros, no sé, 14 en la killfeed y no paraba, y sabíamos, lo vimos mucho, pero hasta que no vimos que tenían 18 kills en ese momento final, no teníamos dimensión de lo mucho que estaban haciendo. Y en un momento casi que se les escapa la partida, que una granada de los chicos de los Donuts le noqueaba a 2 jugadores y Stalwart les pusheaba por el otro lado y dijimos, ojo, está bien, muy buena performance, pero terminás cayendo cuarto, te queda un poco mal sabor de boca. Al final dijeron no, y se quedan con todos los premios juntos.
Ahí está, 39 puntazos, 24 eliminaciones finalmente se daban para ellos. Una locura, ya arrancás. Donuts, las donas ahí que votaba Kevin, le fue bastante bien dentro de todo, 16 puntos, 15 para la gente de Stalwart, que también están pegando poderosamente. Box Gaming, calladitos la boca, un equipo más tranqui, ¿no? 2 eliminaciones nada más, pero hicieron lo que pudieron. La gente Team Soul, que metió 9 puntazos. Aton se queda con 7 en el contador, pasando aún así a VIVO KD, que igualaron en cuanto a eliminaciones, ¿no? Quedándose con 6 puntos, y llegaban ahí los surcoreanos, los gente de WG, con 5 puntos de este lado de la tabla, de los 8 primeros.
Así es, así es. Y bueno, veremos de todas formas el resto de posicionamientos un poquito más adelante. Los chicos de Aton consiguieron más puntos por kills que por posicionamiento. Estaban ahí casi sobre el final, pero justamente entre los japoneses y los vampiros los pusieron como objetivo y no los dejaron avanzar más. Eso les complica un poco el seguir sumando, pero bueno, dentro de todo no es una mala partida para arrancar, sobre todo cuando un equipo acaparó todo el protagonismo y todas las kills como lo hizo Vampire, que ya duplica y un poquito más, y 7 puntos más al segundo puesto. Están más que bien posicionados desde la primera partida. Esto les va a dar muchísimo, muchísimo aire. La única forma de que ya los alcancen a partir de la segunda partida es que cualquier equipo de top 4, Donuts, Stalwart o Box Gaming, ganen la partida muy bien y que no sumen nada a los vampiros en esta. Recién ahí podrían acercárseles un poquito, pero la verdad que si hacen las cosas bien, ya desde el principio podrían estar asegurándose uno de esos 5 puestos al showmatch de la semana que viene.
Sí, también tener en cuenta de que si termina siendo, porque todavía no vimos los demás mapas, ¿no? Miramar ni Sanhok, pero si termina siendo Erangel el mapa donde mejor lo domina la gente de VIVO KD y de Aton, estaríamos hablando de que van a tener mucha sumatoria de puntos y repetir justamente lo que dijo Kevin. Como los vampiros se llevaron casi todas las kills, esto hizo que la brecha no sea tan lejana, o sea que es algo todavía alcanzable, que vos decís, ya arrancaron y ya perdieron. A ver, es difícil, tampoco es que venís, te sentás ahí, y tenés que ganar la partida como si fuera algo fácil. O sea, está en dificultad máxima la cosa, hay que estar ahí, no es sencillo. Ellos lograron una buena posición y era inevitable, ¿no? Más que nada la parte de Aton, me refiero, se tuvieron que meter en una casa, no había mucho espacio y claro, ellos estaban en el medio de la tormenta. VIVO KD ya venía un poco más por la periferia, venían por afuera, pero claro, los tenían pispeados. Y al no tener cobertura se comieron las detos y terminaron perdiendo la partida, ¿no? Pero tal vez si hubieran encontrado alguna mejor cobertura o un mejor sector, VIVO KD tal vez hubiera llegado un poquito más a adentrarse en los finales, como lo hizo sí el jugador de Team Soul, que en un momento no se veía, quedó ahí en modo arbusto, en modo...
And like keep dropping their same spot because they want to fight for it. They don't want to give it up so freely. Is that maybe what we saw there?
I think so to some extent, but I think it is a very big risk because it is such a short-term tournament. Only 3 days, 18 games going to be happening here. If you try and fight consistently for a position and it's just not working out, your chances of a top position are pretty much down the drain, I would say. So you got to be willing to fight for your position, but give it up if it just is not going to work out for you.
And from one game, we see this playing path, and this game's start is atypical, right? The playing path is difficult, so some teams having to reach their initial drop spots and where they want to even be stubborn in, they don't get the opportunity to do so. One of the teams, obviously representing from China, REGAN.S, not being able to usually go up to the Yasnaya location, even though there's kind of 2 teams already orbiting around there and moving into that position. It's going to be interesting to see how they approach a plane that allows them to potentially get there. Maybe we see a fight go down, but they were in okay, let's consolidate and try and find a different location, considering this plane path is difficult for us to get to where we want to go.
Okay, well, I want to give a big shout out before we do break out more things here to Aramco as well, helping provide this event and put it on for us. So thank you so much to these guys for making this possible. But speaking of making it possible, I mean, just to round things out, Vampire putting up 39 points. Now, you look at 39. thing is, it gives you such a nice buffer, right? It gives you such a nice buffer for like later matches, because you cannot afford to have too many bad matches in this if you want to take home the trophy and if you obviously want to move on into the after party.
And the fact you have 18 teams in this lobby, right, it does allow these games to happen a little bit more often for teams, so that comeback potential, I would say, is a lot more present for some of these guys.
I'm going to say I covered some esports in Thailand recently, and the Thailand fans are going to be going absolutely wild at seeing a 39-point game coming out from them. The amount of eliminations they were able to get in this game, rolling from fight to fight, was so impressive, and the fact that they were able to win out the North Rozhok situation as well against some of these teams coming in. You've got Box lurking there trying to deal with it. You've got Stalwart coming in from that right-hand side, and then also Donuts being in the position. Very, very impressive by them.
Okay, well, we can see some of our highlights here as well. If you guys want to walk through anything in particular, to be fair, I would hate to be an observer right now because of how much action was.
Box fell very much victim to that, to the Vampires, as they swooped down and bit them on the neck. And from that, I mean, it was just a great conversion. I love what they presented here in this first game.
But I feel like at the same time, putting on a match like that, you just basically put a giant bullseye on your back. And also from your fans, right? They expect you now to have this kind of, not maybe this kind of performance with how dominated it was, but they expect you to keep this momentum going. I mean, I guess the upside for them is like you have an extremely good match on the first one of the entire event, and that gives you like a nice high into the future games.
The thing is, there was definitely a lot of mayhem happening in this match, and they capitalized on the mayhem. So it proves to me, at least, that this team, Vampire, can deal with stressful situations. If they have a really bad circle, I expect they can work with it and potentially come out on top and get a win when you really don't expect it.
And there is more mayhem because we have more teams in the lobby, because more people are surviving into those later stages of the games. But the thing that impresses me the most is that this was not a central location that they just held down and they just shot at everybody as they came in. No, it was constant movement, constant attempts at trying to find the next best position to where they had to fight through other teams to get to. So that kind of war-type effort that they're able to bring here to this first game, very, very excellent.
And to add on top of that, actually, for Vampire, the very interesting thing is every time they took a fight, the fight lasted, what, like 20 seconds, 25 seconds? Tops.
It was fast execution.
It was super snappy. And the fact that they put that instantly, they could shift to another position, take that spot, take another fight. So I think the execution speed of things definitely made it a lot easier for them to secure the win.
So I have a question for you, Kalaris. Past, well, since obviously COVID started, we have been online for the most part, and we haven't really been offline together. You typically have a nice little sound you make when we see players pull off a lot of damage, or we see teams pull off a lot of damage. We're actually going to take a look at the damage from this last match from all the teams, and I'm curious, how high will Vampire be? 3,600 is not bad.
You know, actually, I thought they were going to show all the players, and I would have estimated with that many eliminations, maybe all of them would have been above 1k damage, which would have been the proper sound that I was bringing. But that is extremely formidable. I mean, the thing is as well is that, yes, Donuts USG actually did put out a lot of damage, but you kind of expect that when they've got the 2-2 split that they had in Rozhok to be able to fire down on anybody that's coming into that area. But the fact that Vampire was going from fight to fight, traversing from fight to fight, and bringing that firepower while also still keeping themselves alive, still covering all their angles, so formidable.
I think they barely got knocked in like all of those fights they took versus the Wildcats, versus VIVO Keyed, versus also Donuts at the end. The fact that you keep 4 players moving around and you're not losing any time going for the res is so important for them to get that success, to get the win at the end of the day.
And the
great stuff.
The rest of the numbers are very urban warfare-esque, very even between all of these other teams, because you generally get in these situations where, unfortunately, for all the other teams, they're all shooting each other all the time. And you get a knock, that person moves behind a wall, you get the res, and it's kind of very chip damage-esque in this urban warfare fight. So the other two teams, the fact that they stand out so much in an urban ending is crazy.
I want to play devil's advocate here, though, for Vampire. 3,600 is a lot of damage, to be completely fair. But 24 limbs, I maybe expected some more damage. Does this maybe show they were getting a lot of, like, they were finishing off knocks from other teams? Or was this, like, what you would expect for 24 limbs?
I think the high damage, a lot of that came from their very wide rotation, right? They were trying to clear some space on the northern side, getting rid of, like, TJB, VIVO, Keyed, also your Wildcats team. I think that was the main reason why their damage was so high, and then they just capitalized, and just every bit of damage they got in that city finish resulted in eliminations, extra knocks coming on through. So I'm not really surprised to see that high damage and, like, a little bit lower eliminations. We said low eliminations is still 24.
Yeah, there was two phases to their approach to Rozhok. One was the actual approach where a lot of the teams in Rozhok are paying attention mostly to teams that are in Rozhok. And as they're pushing up north of the warehouse into Rozhok, not a lot of people in Rozhok can see that because it's kind of a little bit of a downhill. A downhill.
Not an uphill, it's a downhill.
That's right. And then once they get into Rozhok, they have the highest location. So it's very difficult for people to dislodge them.
Okay, well, gentlemen, I feel like we did justice to that first match. Vampire definitely did justice as well, but we do have a short little break here before we do get into our second match. So in the meantime, I'm going to send you over to Team Falcons and basketball. I'm going to leave it at that.
Oh, you got two.
Yeah, got two. 9 minutes of block. I don't know how they got 11.
To be fair, 3 is actually not bad, because that looks pretty difficult.
I think I would get 1 on, like, a lucky day. It's not... I don't believe in myself when it comes to those type of things.
Are you saying Maxman in sports not so good?
I mean, yeah, clearly. No, it doesn't go together.
I haven't even been mean to you on desk yet. You're being mean to yourself.
Exactly, it feels weird, so I have to do it. Yeah, exactly, I have to do it to myself.
We've conditioned him. It's been a while.
It's a little bit odd now that I'm not being mean, but don't worry, we still got plenty of days left, right? We talked about Vampire a lot. We talked about you making a sound. We didn't get to see player stats then, but we're going to see them now. So let's get an idea of actually who was the standout players on that roster and why they got the 3,600 damage.
So close to 3 1Ks, but Mike really kind of pulling out here with the 1,100 damage coming in. I mean, the interesting thing about all of this for me is the fact that not a lot of them took massive amounts of damage. I mean, of course, apart from one in particular, but the way in which we see this damage coming in, they were, as you were saying, they were executing these fights very quickly to move on to the next one, to move on to the next important location, like checkpoints to move to the eventual winning location.
Yeah, and exactly, you saw during those fights, the Ravenclaw was always the one breaching the compounds, right? And he would sure take a lot of damage. Sometimes he would get knocked, but you have one player that has to do the dirty work. He was the one doing it.
He's the tank. He's
exactly.
the tank of the team. You got your 2 DPSers. And we can't see healing, so I don't know if we have a healer.
He was tanking the raid, man. He was going for it. Exactly. The bosses fell down real quick, but I mean, Ravenclaw really did a lot of work to get the team in those positions, and once they were involved, like, it was game over.
I mean, you make a really good point, right? Because if you look at damage received across the boards besides him, it is insanely low for the amount of damage they did and for the amount of eliminations they got. So it seems like their fights were extremely clean.
I think there were moments of opportunistic gameplay as well here, though, at play. If you think about all of the teams that are kind of on that north coast of the riverbank here coming into Rozhok, as they come away from the bridge, a lot of those teams are kind of engaged in a few scrappy fights here and there, and there were moments where Vampire Esports did clean up some of those fights very swiftly and then move into their kind of territory. So that's partially the reason, but just, yeah, great execution.
And I want to give a shout out, because we talked about coaches before, right? We actually have Corpai coaching the team. You might recognize him from Power AAA KPS back 2 years ago in PMGC. I know he's here, and I know he has intentions to be playing back in the competitive scene coming into this next year, but you can't really ever underestimate the value a good coach does bring to your team.
Yeah, especially a player that went to PMGC, right? And it did so good when Power Triple 8 were playing in PMGC. PMGC that was like, what, 2020, I believe it was? Like, he has that backing, and he's also got that, like, physical presence with players at a LAN venue. So that is definitely huge for the team, and it helped them secure that first win here.
Okay. Well, we also have the ability to talk about donuts. We talked, well, not the food form, the form coming in from Japan here with Donuts USG. And how well they did. I know we actually had an interesting thing with them is the fact is they're not all Japanese players. Miss on the team is actually from South Korea, but he's playing within the roster. And as we saw at the very end of that game as well, he got a couple of eliminations to help bring them up the leaderboard.
I think Donuts as a whole, I think they've leveled up from incorporating...
on purpose? Donuts whole? Donut hole?
You know, I'm trying to be subtle here, and you're very American, Jason.
That was intentional.
He's very immersed, yeah.
I like that Donuts incorporated in their South Korean players, be it Missile, be it Korean player on, you know, as a fifth, etc. Because I think this has leveled them up. Admittedly, in this game, Rozhok is their drop location, and they did have a good amount of time to be able to choose where they were going to actually pitch up, try and kind of stage their campaign from as a whole. But we saw the transitions, right?
Yeah.
We saw when the 2-2 comes along, they know they're going to get crunched down on. They have to make a decision. Where are you going to go? You can't go up from the 2-2 into the warehouses, so you go down into the buildings that they were able to kind of isolate. And that was a great little opportunity for them to try and strike out. I thought they were going to get the win off that location. Didn't work out because Vampire just went God mode. So, yeah. It was a nice try.
You could not really fault them for that. Like, they had to regroup from that 2-2 to a full squad, because if you don't, you have Box, you have Stalwart entering from the southern side. They're going to breach you, collapse on your position, and then you're down to 2 players, and then you have more teams coming from the northern side. Like, you have to regroup, and unfortunately for them, Vampire played that position above them so well. It was really hard for Donuts to deal with it.
Well, I know you're talking about them in the drop location, but they did, to be fair, take down 2 members of Nigma Galaxy very early in the match as well to like really get themselves leveled up. And obviously, again, to show that they can compete against these teams. You know, we talk about Japan and Korea. Typically, it's just kind of in their own region, whether it's the Japan League, you know, or they sometimes have clashes actually between the 2 regions. But on an international scale, they don't really play much. You know, think back to Bluebees in PMGC 2020, right? This is a team that kind of really showed what they can do and what the power Japan has to offer. And then we're finally seeing it at a global stage.
And this is the important thing for Donuts USG is that, again, Japan in terms of like mobile esports and PC esports, in other locations,
or console.
They're not. Yeah, but this is where I'm saying in console they're very powerful, but in some of these other ones not as much. But when you see those clashes come in, like you're mentioning between Japan and Korea, Donuts USG won out that against their South Korean competitors in the most recent iteration of that tournament. So that shows that they were able to incorporate a lot of kind of that survival style that we see from them. It really did kind of pay its way forward here in this game, and I'm expecting good things from them here at the tournament as a whole.
Yeah, when you think about also Japan, right, their ecosystem compared to the rest of the world is like relatively new, you could say. So I think that as the time goes on, you're still going to need more and more talent, more and more of these teams making it to international and potentially performing. So I think the hopes are high for Japan in the long term, at least.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I really enjoy events like PMWI, PMGC, getting to see these regions compete against each other. I kind of wish we had it more often, to be completely honest with you. Well, every week's a little bit too much. As long as we're working the event every week, then I'd be happy. But it gives the ability for every region to get better, but also every region to show what they can do. Think back to Zeus. Think back to Stalwart. I mean, Zeus in 2020, Stalwart back in 2021. Like, we never would have seen much from these regions, and yet all of a sudden we're seeing them compete against the likes of Nova, who won 2 PMGCs. Like, they're battling against the best teams in the world and showing that we can still compete even if we haven't played you before.
Yeah, it's a process. They're getting there slowly but surely. I mean, they already had a very good first game, right? Sure, no chicken dinner, but you don't really need it every time. As long as you can convert those eliminations in an 18-team lobby, you will get in a good spot. And that's why I also have high hopes for Africa in long term. Like, they've got their first PMPL this spring season. Next year, I think this first year, like, there's maybe a little bit of lack of international event experience, but in the long run, Africa could be a top contender in the future.
And you bring up teams like Stalwart. I mean, they've basically put Mongolia on the map when it comes to this kind of esport. It's extremely impressive to see how they're able to play things out. And Blank was mentioning it during the cast. All of these guys are very capable of individual brilliance on the battleground. And you can't take anything away from them. The fact that they were able to come in on the south side of Rozhok and not only take some of those fights, but then also be able to transition over the road, which is normally where you lose. That's where if you're trying to come in against that circle, that's where you end your campaign. But they didn't. They continued on and continued to provide some some moments here in this game. That's impressive.
Well, you're talking about individual performance, right? And individual glory and what they can do. Speaking of individual performances, if you guys haven't noticed, every, I think, LAN event we have on a global scale, we always have a certain man, the director of PUBG Mobile Esports, James Yang, to talk to us about the future of PUBG Mobile Esports. And luckily for us, we have him once again. So we'll head down the stage to take a listen in.
Hello, PUBG Mobile fans in the world. I'm James Yang, the director of PUBG Mobile Global Esports. Yay! I would like to say personally how incredible it is to talk to you all in person. It's too far long, as we all know. I'm here today to share the exciting details about 2022 PUBG Mobile Global Championship and more. Stay tuned until the end. Okay, firstly, I'm happy to announce that the 2022 PMGC Grand Finals will be a major offline event in Indonesia in January. PMGC League will begin in early November, and it will run for 4 weeks to determine the teams heading to Indonesia to battle for the crown as the best PUBG Mobile team in the world. An incredible 48 teams, the best of best teams from each region, qualified through the year. The most to ever in our offline event will join to PMGC League. The top 13 teams will take their place in Grand Finals with 3 direct invites. As well as PMWI, Sony's Xperia will be the official smartphone partner for 2022 PMGC, ensuring all players are able to perform at the highest level on the biggest stage. And that's not all yet. I'm excited to talk to you about a new competition, PUBG Mobile Regional Clash, beginning next month. The PMRC is focusing on pitting different regions against each other, beginning with PMPL Southeast Asia versus PEL. You never want to miss it, so please follow us from September 22nd to 25th. Okay, it's a time to go back to enjoy PMWI. On the circle! Thank you!
The only thing I'm disappointed in that is that he's not doing more martial arts for us, because that was always my favorite part of James Yang and having a chat with us about PUBG Mobile Esports. But fantastic to see as well. We learned about a little bit about PMGC, going to be in Indonesia here in January with the 4 weeks in November, the regional clash as well. Max, I know you had your eye on.
I mean, it's going to be great to see a lot of the Chinese teams from PL actually playing versus the SEA teams, right? Got that rivalry happening a lot of the time. So, I mean, normally you see in these international events like 1, 2 teams from PL. Here you're going to have like half of the lobby PL teams. Like, that's going to be pretty insane.
Yeah, we mentioned it before, but I mean, two regions that have excellent teams at the very top. So to see them kind of clash and just make this mega lobby, I think is going to be very exciting.
Well, by the way, if you guys didn't know, I remember I taught you all at home about different prizes you can win and different ways you can win. We do have a meme contest currently happening. So you need to check out, Instagram and Facebook stories for fan-made memes. You need to make your own and post them over on your own page, and make sure to tag PUBG Mobile Esports as well. And there will be some winners picked out with some lucky prizes. I'm not going to say exactly what they're going to be, but they're good. You're going to want them. Trust me on that one. And speaking of memes, I mean, Max, you are the meme master. Maxman meme master.
I was a meme.
I was good, yeah. Speaking of memes, Max is a meme. Continue.
Go on.
And what was your question? I went completely
off. What's the question?
Oh, okay. It was just like, okay, I'm a meme then. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, memes are good. I want to see them posted on social media. Maybe I'll share them.
I mean, we did have a phenomenal couple of them back in, was it PMGC 2020, of how to beat Bigatron. A1 Esports was a big proponent in how to do that. Maybe we'll have to revive some with the Indonesian. I mean, for here at the event, we have the Indonesian talent, we have the Arabic talent, we have the Turkish talent, so we have some things lined up potentially to do all together for some fun little things. pretty much
updated version, I would say.
Well, pretty much it's going to be all of us with Max in the center of a circle, and all of us are going to make fun of him and be mean to him
Just
in
so
different languages. Yeah.
Point and laugh, guys. Okay, no, don't do that, please. Not
I
interested.
won't. Jason will.
Oh,
Yeah.
he will do that.
Yeah,
right?
But you have to do a crawdad dance in the middle of the circle.
Could be an emote in the game in the future. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
cool.
there's a lot of potential for it. What's up, Cloris? You're looking at me like you don't know what's happening.
I'm enjoying myself.
You enjoy yourself? Okay, well, let's enjoy ourselves by talking about maybe some other teams. Any other guys you want to talk about here that we didn't touch on, either at the top of the show or in that last match?
I would have to talk about here, I would say Wildcats, right? They had some good intention when it comes to their rotation. As we know, they dropped like a North Carolina military position around the map, and it was like a tough circle afterwards. You had to go for the wide rotation up north. I think that there was some good intention behind it. The execution was maybe a little bit all over the place, and I think that for them dealing for the first time with this type of lobby, they have to adapt a little bit more. But the idea was there, in my opinion.
For me, I'm of the opinion that Military Island is a bit of a dead drop. For Stalwart, they've got the absolute world class to be able to negate quite a bit of that. For Wildcats, I'm a little bit concerned if that's going to pay dividends later going into this tournament. We'll see, based on playing paths, based on drops as a whole, and see how that's going to go out throughout the tournament. But I do have my concerns there.
Okay, well, I mean, obviously there's another region we haven't really touched on, unfortunately, because typically we've seen in the past couple years they can't really compete when it comes to these global events. Back-to-back, a team from North America, they have been able to win PMPL back-to-back, which is a great sign. But the unfortunate, or not unfortunate part is, but the fact is they need to show what they can do. I would love to see them do what they can, or show what they can do, because I'm American and I would love to see them do well.
Yeah, I mean, it's been proven that they can dominate locally. Like, when it comes to their region, they can do just so well. So I'm hoping we can see some good representation from back-to-back, but it's going to take some time to get there.
All right, well, speaking of getting there, we're going to be getting to the second match of the day here momentarily. We're going to be heading over to Miramar this time, which is going to be quite interesting again. A bigger map, so we have obviously more teams. Maybe that's going to facilitate them a little bit more. But I know while we were watching the last match, we were quite surprised by how many teams were still left alive, how late into the match we actually got into over on Erangel. But speaking of getting over to, let's head on over to John on a Blank once again to kick off our second match.
Thank you so much, Jason. We are ready and raring to go over on Miramar. It's going to get a little bit hotter, maybe matching the temperatures here in Riyadh. It's been pretty hot for a couple of Brits like us, eh, Blank? It's even the walk from the shuttle from the hotel to the event here is absolutely boiling.
It is pretty intense, I'm not going to lie. I've stepped into the world of it, and I'm sure some people really enjoy it. I actually did enjoy it. I enjoy it for the first 10 minutes each time because it's the driest heat I've ever had, so it just feels like having a very hot aircon going on just everywhere. That's actually just wind and the sun. Natural. That's just how things work. But some of these teams have been finding things very natural in games so far. Vampire looks like this is just second nature to them here in the PMWI, just taking names and taking those elimination points home for themselves. Here on Miramar, though, just looking at a couple of the drops so far, El Pozo as well as Picardo are absolutely stacked in terms of teams that will be dropping here. You've got REGAN.S, Box Gaming and Aton Esports all dropping in Picardo together. El Pozo, you got Damwon, Donuts and Nigma Galaxy. So one of these teams is going to come out on top in those specific locations. We'll just have to find out who.
El Pozo a little bit late on this drop path at the moment, as we are. We've got a secret sneak peek at the playing path here, Blank. Don't tell anyone, all right? Keep it on the down low. But El Pozo will be a little bit later on that progression for these players. Maybe could affect the number of teams that do opt to go there fully, but then again, maybe not. We were talking a lot about how teams want to hold on to what they've got. Certainly going to make a difference if they make it or not. But we're going to go into Miramar in game number 2. The plane takes to the skies over the desert once more.
So immediately heading up here, Los Leones can pick up a lot of these teams in this current playing path that we will be seeing on your screens very, very shortly. And I feel like I'm telling the future right now. That's because I absolutely am. So a couple of teams could drop it towards Los Leones. There's not too many teams that I've seen so far that have been dropping in Los Leones exclusively, but that can hold at least 3, which will alleviate some of the problems, especially with Miramar being such a large map anyway.
We head into the game. You can see now the playing path that we've been seeing from the southeast side up to La Cobreria. Seeing where teams drop out. And of course, the first time this is going to be played at the top level with 18 teams. Keeping an eye on those drops like a hawk.
Absolutely. And with 6 of these teams dropping exclusively in Picado and El Pozo, honestly, everywhere else that teams want to go to should be absolutely free. So just looking at this one in particular, Impala for Wildcats, this is a place that they love to go. They're already dropping out in that location already. So this seems fantastic. You know, honestly, I've seen a fair few matches from Wildcats as well where playing path has been absolutely diabolical for them going to Impala, yet they still go to Impala. They love it there. So this is a great start for them here on Miramar. Perhaps, you know, maybe they can shore up some of those issues that maybe they had over on Erangel, where things just really did not go their way versus Stalwart.
Puerto Paraíso currently being held by VGS as they dropped out really very early. Down one, Kia headed further southwest. I imagine they're going to be moving over towards Minas de Bahia, Valdemar, on that southwestern edge. But Box Gaming and Team Soul look at a clash in Picado. Only 2 teams at the moment in very close proximity in this location. Neither team yet taking a knock. But look at that very forward position from one of the players from Box. I didn't quite catch the name there. But they are absolutely in the lion's den amongst Seoul, Bensu, with players all around. Omega on that outskirt has the back fall out for Bensu. Has a vehicle, sorry, not a vehicle, a weapon as well in hand. Do they know that there's a player here from Seoul?
Picado can hold 2 of these teams, but you do have to be constantly on a swivel here, John, to make sure that no one's creeping up behind you. Box Gaming, very certain on positions that they want to hold around this map. Trisme with the M249, already with a very heavy-hitting weapon, which could be very dangerous should it come to close quarters with these teams inside these compounds. But it would look like REGAN.S as well as Aton Esports have dipped from this location. You can see REGAN.S on our screen, at least on the map feed. You got DD as well as one other player in Los Leones alongside with Aton Esports, actually. So this is very, very interesting. REGAN.S have north and Atons have south side of Los Leones. So this works out exactly what I was talking about earlier, that Los Leones is massively free. And it looks like REGAN.S and Aton happy to not go Picado, not go to that usual position, and instead take a safer spot here towards Los Leones.
Really just a bit of a standoff for Team Seoul and Box Gaming right now in Picado. They have extricated themselves from one another, although Bensu's still pretty close by. A couple of shots have been landed as well between the 2 teams. But, of course, it's not just the teams that are going to be getting stuff done here. Of course, you have the opportunity to get the gun skin and outfit for the PMWI from the 4th to the 13th of this month. 50% off PMWI packs, and you can get a set straight away with that, as well as 5 chances to draw PMWI treasure chests.
And if you can't take advantage of that, next little sale period we do have is from 14th to the 15th of September. So that's 14th this month through to 15th of September. That's 16% of PMWI packs, and you get 6 chances to draw those PMWI treasure chests. So make sure you are getting on that early to reap the rewards. But if not, there's still chances ahead of you.
And of course, you can complete daily missions to earn points. And once enough points are accumulated, you tap on the rewards icon to claim the corresponding reward.
If you want to participate in the event solo or team with other players, that's absolutely fine as well. But team them up, that could give you an extra little chance and make the reward to get a little easier. So make sure you tell all your friends about it and get them on board.
Goodness me, it looks like Bensu and...
Actually, they're mates.
I don't think so. I do not think that they will wait 1 second after seeing one another to try and make it all the worse for them. To stand off. Soul has backup, though. If actually just waiting
those are
for
mates.
a team, those are his mates, right? And so if he pushes in whilst he has that backup, you can trade it off, right? That's what you're really looking for. It's the value of a team. You saw Hector there on the sidelines as well with a nice vantage point to get an off angle. Watch for those players pushing around that flank side. We hop on board with Nigma Galaxy, though, as they are vibing on around in El Pozo, the only team to actually drop up there.
Yeah, so this is the one that we were curious about. USG for Donuts were very, very hell-bent on taking Rozhok on Erangel here, but they have given up El Pozo. You know, they're happy to give it to another team. You know, Nigma Galaxy, they took 2 points off them last game, ruined their Erangel, so they'll throw them a coin just this one time. Instead, heading up towards El Azahar on that northeastern side, but no one else is here, so this is a very viable drop for them. Looking at down one, who also another El Pozo team, they're down towards Valdemar, so they'll take that up on the western edge. They will have to contend with back-to-back, who do love to go for a southern rotation, but it's TJB coming in from Chumacera to ruin their day.
Yeah, they take one of the players from back-to-back down. Early scouting, losing a player, not ideal on Miramar. But sadly, it's the risk you run. Team Seoul looking to put the pressure onto Box. This is a fight. The initiative is being taken by Team Seoul here, Blank. They are choosing this fight. They are making this one happen. Box Gaming looked like they were content to sit back a little bit. Maybe it's a strategy. Maybe it's aggression through passiveness, right? Allow them to move to you. Allow them to make those missteps.
Well, way back in day, it was always very hard to break the box formation. That was always the very, very difficult thing to get through. And right now, Box are happy to sit in this building. Now, back-to-back, just quickly going back to that last fight there between TJB as well as back-to-back. You know, they actually really struggled with this in the finals of Spring 2022, is that on our angle particularly, they would send one scout out and lose that scout very, very early on, dropping them down to 3 players. Already, this is becoming a problem here on Miramar. A lot of these other teams keeping it very, very tight, but Bensu finds one of the players trying to slip through the cracks, but that's not going to happen. The box formation is tight.
It is absolutely on the ball. Really, really nice stuff there. Omega a little bit too far forwards. No backup really from Team Seoul on that angle, and a nice opening. And look, Box Gaming move forwards. They re-establish that perimeter. They reclaim this territory. There is a sideswipe potential for Team Seoul if they get that spot, but there's a backstab. Morpher here, over the hill, and it's just Frenzy for the time being, but he has reinforcements coming from the north. Break looking to put this fight into gear now as Team Seoul are on the back foot. Around the side, the reload needs to come through. A lot of damage to Bensu, but it's not enough to get the knock. Break, however, finds Goblin. Akshat now flagging for Team Seoul. 3 players alive for Box as they've lost 1.
It was actually REGAN.S from the western side that took the knock onto Box. And this was the team that originally liked to play Picardo on that southern edge. And they've just taken a little bit of time in Los Leones, sweep back up here, and ready to reclaim Picardo for their own, knowing that this was going to be a hotly contested spot. Most likely 2 teams locked together. And now they're going to take advantage of this. Very good from REGAN.S.
Seoul really suffering under this pressure from Box Gaming. 3 elimination points already found. Losing 1, you feel like you're going to take that for now. I feel like that might lay claim to Picardo for them in the future Miramars that we're going to see. If they're lucky, we'll see if Team Seoul want to try and vie for that again. But as you say, RSG, Morph, both moving in from both sides of Picardo.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a squeeze going on here, but it does seem like China is really trying to take a nasty little split. You can see it on your screen right now, where it's just coming down from the hills in Picardo. 52 Esports have taken a knock there. They're right on the western side. I believe that is to Nigma Galaxy. So Nigma Galaxy trying to pick up some more points. Ralph, though, right on the eastern side, he's looking for a compound for the rest of the team to stay, but they're busy with 52 Esports right now.
Looks like 52 Esports are just going to try and keep moving down south. You can see them all mounted up in those vehicles on that western edge. Monte Nuevo, the central focal point of this next circle, just a little bit further out east. It's good for back-to-back right now, who have a lot of that sort of area, despite them losing a player early. If TJB, with GK first moving in there now, can take position there as well on the eastern side,